Hi, I'm Austin Alejandro, and this is Group A's response to Group D's Dove case analysis. These are our team members, and presenting today will be myself, Kay Cromley, and Thane Smith. I want to start off by briefly touching on Group D's key takeaways. The major key takeaway is that Unilever's effort to turn Dove into a master brand was a resounding success. There's little evidence to refute this claim, as we'll see in our response to the analysis. In some ways, the advertising campaign was revolutionary, changing the way products have been advertised since. They did this through a combination of psychological research and a four-tiered marketing approach in which Dove catapulted itself into the media spotlight. Since the campaign, revenue continues to grow, up 60% since the launch, up to over $4 billion in revenue as of 2020. As seen here, our groups did come to similar conclusions about the Dove campaign. Yes, it was a success. Yes, it was worth the risk. Yes, they used marketing research, and yes, they made more money. But where our presentations will differ is the discussion as to why it worked. Group D discussed points like value creation and value communication and how media talking about media was a contributor to their success. And our group will add to that by discussing how Dove became the potential product it was trying to become, the points of parity and differences with the overall market at the time, and we'll take a deeper dive into the four-tier marketing plan as we'll discuss more of the psychology of advertising. Here's our SWOT analysis. This is possibly what the SWOT analysis could have looked like at the time for Dove when it decided to become a larger umbrella brand. Dove's two biggest strengths at the time were brand recognition and resources. It was a universally established brand with a huge arm behind it in Unilever. This means that along with the brand name, it had the financial backing and production lines ready for a major shift to Dove, or for Dove as a product. The infrastructure was basically in place to make the move. Here we have our weaknesses. The weakness at the time for Unilever was brand fracturing. This is what they were trying to resolve, and they wanted to evolve Dove from a soap to an array of beauty products to essentially a lifestyle brand. And it needed to do this by moving away from a functional marketing strategy, and it needs to get creative. Here we see the opportunities that it had. There was an opening that Dove found itself when it came to advertising. No one else in the beauty industry was marketing with the same kind of strategy that they were planning to execute. And the threats. This is where, even though the opportunity presented itself to advertise in a new way, there was a risk. They were the only people probably doing it at the time in the early 2000s, and it was more revolutionary then than it may seem now. Here we have the customer value hierarchy. I just want to briefly touch on here is I want to show the concentric circle starting with the core benefit. The core benefit of Dove at the time was personal hygiene. Back then it was just soap. The problem became how to move Dove to be known by more than just a soap and become the potential product that it was aspiring to be. So here are the levels outlined before the brand expansion. Core benefit, personal hygiene. The generic product at the time was the soap. When people bought the soap, they expected to have smoother skin, a moisturizing soap that smelled great. Then you move outward to the augmented products, which were things like face wash and other cleaning products that they had at the time. But on the outer circle, you see the potential product that they were trying to become. Unilever wanted Dove to become a lifestyle brand with a wide array of beauty products.
Thank you, Austin, for that great introduction. Unilever was undergoing a change with the Dove brand to become that lifestyle brand. As the company itself was moving towards master brands, Dove was looking to the future of their main product, the soap. Although their soap had a clear differentiation within the marketplace, Dove had to realize their product was in the mature or potentially even declining phase of the product life cycle. How does Dove then promote growth of this product? They accomplished this two different ways. One, by expanding their production selection under the new brand positioning. Dove realized that not all their products were going to be able to be marketed with their functionality being the selling point. But by creating this new brand strategy, they were able to expand the production set under the new brand umbrella. Additionally, it created buzz around the product, which they then used to deploy their integrated media approach. Once Dove realized they needed to deploy a new marketing and brand strategy, they had to figure out what that message was. Dove hired psychiatrists and psychotherapists as part of the market research process, which was a stark contrast to the traditional focus group. They were able to realize there was a message to be shared through this research that was more than just the feelings of how consumers felt about their product, but how they felt about themselves as part of the industry. Once Dove was able to understand their message, they needed a way to deploy it. They used every media available to deploy, including YouTube ads, traditional media ads, as well as one of the first brands to deploy influencers, which not only challenged industry standards, but also allowed for non-traditional content distribution. As the case analysis team showed us, there were so many ways Dove chose to market their product. And once people resonated with the message, it continued to grow outside of their own advertisements. As Harris stated within the case study, you can't buy pop culture, and pop culture is exactly what Dove had become. One reason the marketing campaign was newsworthy was the use of emotional branding. Dove chose to use emotion as a key part of their strategic marketing plan. This was definitely the riskier strategy, straying from the traditional marketing of a product to promoting a controversial message that resonated with their consumers without really directly advertising their product at all. Dove showed what the power of these messages could do for consumers. Dove's brand became more authentic in the eyes of the consumers as their advertisements used real people that these women could identify with in the campaigns. Dove realized the potential success of creating an emotional connection between the brand and their consumers, and if done right, the impact it could have on their financial success and as well as the success of their brand. Dove also walked the talk by establishing the Dove Self-Esteem Fund, which further showed their authenticity and commitment to their message while creating a trusting relationship with their consumers, knowing that it wasn't just talk. As the case analysis mentioned, this is the future of advertising as we know it today. Almost all companies need to be able to show authenticity and create trust in our era. What Dove did was groundbreaking, but has since become the norm. Now I'll pass it over to Thane to give a more in-depth analysis of the four-tiered marketing approach.
Thank you, Kate. And now I'll be discussing the four-tiered plan a little bit more in detail and specifically what we think mechanistically is going on behind each aspect of the four-tiered campaign. So for the first tier, we are looking at the tick box campaign, and specifically we want to highlight the inner dialogue that was created as people cast their vote in response to this ad. And we think that this is a great way to prime the market for further reflection. And we think that this does a great job at encouraging second and third level dialogue across time as individuals become aware of the vote count as it's shifting, right? And then that may cause up some feelings, emotions surrounding, the votes that are being cast. For the second tier, this really turn to interpersonal discussions surrounding real beauty. And this is great because it capitalizes on the initial prime and encourages more of an in-depth understanding. And this also reinforces Dove's position in the market because each time these beauty standards are being talked about, Dove is going to be in the back of the customer's minds. Then for the campaign for real beauty, we really feel that this took it even further by saying that this issue is really spanning generations. And we feel that the executives did a nice job of coming across as authentic here through having their own daughters talk about some of the issues that they were dealing with. And this really highlights the authenticity that Dove is going for and ultimately the association with the brand, that you feel that they're not pushing a product, but they're standing for a cause. And for the fourth tier here, they utilized a YouTube distribution mechanism, really a film documenting the effects before and after. And this really underscores the show don't tell idea. So that now that we've got the conversation going, we're going to show you how these photos and really why and how these beauty standards have come into being and why they're unrealistic. So this is just capitalizing on all of Dove's past marketing efforts. And we can see in the competitor landscape in 2006 that Dove's campaign here really contrasts business as usual. We have 3 advertisements here from Olay and Nivea. And these campaigns use protection-based language and make statements surrounding the effect of aging, but they do little to start the conversation surrounding women's beauty standards. And this is really why it was so revolutionary for Dove at the time. And this also positioned Dove to continue the conversation over time and launch subsequent campaigns. We can see the Real Beauty Sketch campaign here in 2013. This is where women self-describe themselves and contrast that with portraits given by general public's descriptors of them. And this really highlights the point of difference for Dove, and what's differentiated them from the competition is that they're standing for conversations, for identity, for a dialogue which is evolving to tackle some of society's issues. Even though they may be selling similar products in kind of the same industry as their competitors, how they're going about communicating the real needs of the customer really makes Dove stand out. And here you can see a close-up just for reference. So here to wrap up, was it worth the risk? Well, we believe absolutely it was worth the risk, and that Dove definitely positioned themselves as a master brand, and that by choosing this approach, which is around the dialogue, it spans products, right? And this is really that competitive advantage because it challenged the traditional perception of beauty, and it starkly contrasts what the competitors are doing at that time in 2006. And you're also getting direct engagement, both on an individual and across customer basis from the customer. And we feel that it was very successful. Thanks. Look forward to reading your insight in the discussion board.